government shutdown. Who's winning? Who's losing? I'm Steve Green, and this is part 2 of Trifecta's week-long look at the government shutdown. Now, in our first segment, we gave you front row seats to Shutdown Theater. Next time, we'll give you a look at the corner the GOP has painted itself into and how it might be able to get out. But that one's for members only, so you want to hit that subscribe button up near the top of your screen there. Today, though, we look at the politics of the shutdown, or as Ed Koch used to ask, how am I doing? Well, not so good. Let's bring on Scott Ott and Bill Whittle and get right to it. All right, Scott, Gallup currently has President Obama underwater by 11 points. 52% disapprove of his job performance to 41% approval. Do you think those numbers give John Boehner any leverage, or did the last election give President Obama all the flexibility he needs?
Well, you know, he won, so he gets to call the shots, right? Or that's what he thought anyway. Now, I think there is some leverage in the popularity now, and you certainly have to pay attention to what the American public think. I'm not totally convinced, though, that that's going to be the most effective tack here. I think the most effective tack is doing the right thing, is doing what in your soul and in your principles you believe to be the right thing to do. And I think, if anything, if you want to look at, who's winning in this situation, small government conservatives, limited government conservatives, because every day that this thing goes on and people find out that they're able to conduct their day-to-day lives with relatively little inconvenience, they'll discover more and more that the federal government is what the framers said it should be, which is something that has a very small footprint in our lives. Something like 83% of federal government spending is continuing to go on. So this so-called shutdown, by the way, is only about 17% anyway. But I'm hoping that people will realize, hey, limit that government and it's not going to hurt.
Yeah, well, as long as the check's in the mail, I don't think most people are going to complain. Bill, there's a similar story in an ABC News Washington Post poll asking specifically about the budget negotiations. In that one, it's 51% of Americans disapprove of the president, and 45% say he's doing okay. But this is where it gets tricky. When asked about Republicans in Congress, only 24% approve of how they're handling the budget negotiations, and a whopping 70% disapprove. With numbers like those, is it time for Boehner to throw in the towel, or, like Scott said, should he keep doing the right thing?
Well, there's a lot to say about that. First of all, it's a miracle that it's not 100% don't disapprove of the way the Republicans are handling things, because, number one, the media stream that we're having to swim up against is unbelievable. Just the amount of propaganda that the Democratic Party's audiovisual department, formerly known as the Free Press of this country, is throwing at the Republicans is amazing. There's any support for it at all. That's number one. But let's look at the more important issue. Should Boehner be throwing in the towel? No, he shouldn't be throwing in the towel. We should throw Boehner in the towel, with the towel. I think John Boehner's a pretty decent guy, and he's always struck me as a decent guy. Let me just tell you a super quick little story. When I got to the University of Florida, we were a pretty mediocre team. We got a new coach named Charlie Pell, and we had all our hopes based on Charlie Pell. And they print up these bumper stickers that said, "Give 'em hell, Pell." Well, Charlie Pell went 0-10 and won his first year at the University of Florida. And by the end of that first year, people had taken those bumper stickers, cut them up, and they no longer said, "Give 'em hell, Pell." They said, "Hell, give 'em Pell." So what I think we ought to do is, I think rather than throwing in the towel, I think we ought to throw in John Boehner. Can we not get a speaker in opposition who can tell a story? Can we not find one person in the country who can tell a story? Can we not understand that the media is going to spin every single thing that happens, every bit of it, except for the part that actually comes out of his mouth, and they'll spin that before and after, but the stuff that comes out of the speaker's mouth cannot actually be spun. And that is a guy who has to get out there and say, we're being painted by you as the villains when we all know that we're not the villains. They're the villains. Here's why, here's why, here's why, here's why. Now, to answer your question, a guy who can do that can get those numbers up above 50%. But this is not the man to do it, Steve. It's clearly not the man to do it. What principles does he have? Name me a John Boehner quote. What does John Boehner believe? I know what Ronald Reagan believed.
Yeah, well, he's a nice guy. What we need is a fighter. What we need is a storyteller. What are you going to do? All right, the answer to who's winning, who's losing might be found in a Rasmussen poll that just came out on Tuesday. In it, 82% of registered Democrats say end the shutdown. 71% of Republicans say keep the shutdown going. So even though I think the strategy might not have been wise, the Republicans are too deep in to back out now. The GOP can't afford to lose without wiping out support from the GOP base, and that takes us right into the 2014 midterm elections. The question remains, though, what can the Republicans still win? Well, we're going to get to that in part 3. It's for members only, so stay tuned and get yourself subscribed if you aren't already. For Scott Ott and Bill Whittle, I'm Steve Green. Thanks for watching.